Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. This is the VARside Spurs podcast, and we are here for a little monathon, possibly. I don't know whether we can stick in or cram in a little bit of kind of hope somewhere in it. I'm not sure, but I think we've got a few things to get off our chest. So joining us today is Rich. How are you doing, mate?
Well, I'm an embodiment of being a Spurs supporter at the moment because I appear to have got some sort of lurgy or malaise.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're better soon, mate. And Andy, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks, Lee. Yeah, pretty good under the circumstances, I feel.
Yeah, well, obviously, last night's game is something we need to dissect. And of course, some of our messages on WhatsApp were pretty irate, weren't they? I think, and pretty condemning of some of the sort of tactics, manager, the players, etc. So we'll get straight into that. I just want to ask you then, straight up, Andy, thoughts on the slump that we are in at the moment, and this sort of turgid crap we're seeing at the moment. Should we be worried about it?
So I guess it depends on how you really define recent, because I would say that we've been in this slump for the majority of the season. So although we've had these recent losses and last night's draw, which felt like a loss, obviously, because we should have won the thing right at the end, I feel that the whole team just seems a bit dysfunctional, and I think everybody kind of knows this who's been watching us.
Why is that, Andy, do you think?
I'm not sure. I think part of it is possibly to do with the World Cup, so players have got their minds on that. I think also that Conte might be changing things in the way that he's doing stuff. I can't really put my finger on what he's doing there, but maybe the whole dynamic of the squad has changed by bringing in new players, and also you just wonder whether last season's kind of upward curve is this season's downward curve, and I think you were saying this earlier, Rich, about the the fact that we're playing so many games, which is different to what it was last season. And Conte invariably needs a bit of time between games, and I just don't think he's getting it. He's that every 3 days playing doesn't give him enough time on the training pitch to do his rigid automations or whatever he does. And I think we struggle because of that.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard this one before, actually, about, Conte needs 1 game a week, but that's not management. And if you're in lots of competitions, that's not really feasible, is it? Because
that's
actually,
a fair point. Yeah.
If you're a top class manager, like most top class managers, you're able to work our way through this. And okay, yes, at the moment it's quite exceptional in terms of the sort of schedule, but it's the same for everybody. Rich, what were your thoughts, just sort of on last night, on the way we're playing recently? Anyone to be blamed here, or anything we should be worried about, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things to be said about it. I mean, as Andy sort of said, that I've alluded to before, I mean, people talk about that wonder season that he had with Chelsea where they just rolled everybody over and walked the league, and it was a one game a week scenario for them there.
It was.
And then, of course, the following year when they were back in the Champions League, it all kind of fell apart quite quickly for him. And there is a narrative that gets bandied about that, and like you say, about Conte needing a game a week. And I mean, I think there are a couple of things to say. Something that just popped into my mind as you were talking then was, yes, it is the same for everyone, but actually we aren't doing any worse than anybody else because of it. I mean, we are third in the league. I mean, only Manchester City and Woolwich have really pulled up trees. Liverpool have had a really stuttering start to the season because of it. Maybe because they've lost players like Mane, who are big players in the team. But but actually, I don't think we're being any more impacted than a lot of other teams around us. I think, we are still third in the league, although I think the top two have now got a game in hand on us. And if
They have, yeah.
they win those games, the leaders will be 10 points ahead of us now, I think. So, I mean, I do think this schedule is the big thing. And I remember looking at the schedule for a pod that we did a few weeks ago, and actually the 3 days between games thing, it's actually a little bit more on top than that as well, because although in some weeks we've had 4 days in between match days and match days, so 3 clear days. A lot of the time we play a game and then we get 2 clear days, and on the 3rd day is actually the match day, so we play at night. So that really is, a big impact, and I think that like you say, there's the World Cup. Is obviously playing on players' minds. They don't want to get injured. They don't want to miss it. And also the condensed nature of the schedule leading up to it, and the uncertainty of what's going to be like after it. And it is a bit of a funny season. I don't think we're suffering any worse than anybody else.
No, I think you make a really good point there, actually, because we're talking about like this is a slump, but we're third in the league, topping our Champions League group. So it's not really a slump. It's just not as good as we'd want it, I think.
I agree. I think the other thing that I was going to say about it, just really quickly, was I agree very much with what Andy says, in the respect that in terms of the football that we've played, we've been quite lucky, and actually we've got away with a lot of results where we probably really didn't deserve to win the games, and where we didn't deserve to take a point away from a game. And actually, the worry is that it's not actually, such an obvious slump results-wise, but that what we're seeing is that sort of helter-skelter last 5 weeks of the last season, where they did just chuck everything at it to get over the line for fourth, set a tone for our expectations, which can't be replicated, early season. And there is a little bit of it that smacks of that post missing out on the title Pochettino seasons. When we went to Wembley and he absolutely changed the way that we played, and we stopped pressing. And that we played some really fucking turgid football under Pochettino for a long time. And I feel like I put my mouth out saying this because I'm his biggest.
No, you're right.
No. But I think there are parallels here, is that what, when we missed out on the league, is everybody worked out how to stop us playing. And actually what people have done now is we like to let teams come onto us so that they create their own gaps for us to exploit, and teams just aren't fucking doing it,
I agree, but I'm going to maybe sort of slightly devil's advocate here. I mean, without sounding like being too entitled, but why are we all so unhappy then? Because you're right, we're third, we're in the top of the Champions League group, but you got fans booing. I mean, these are fans that most of them probably aren't on Twitter. These are just like, your general fans, and they're very unhappy. I mean, you're using the eye test here, right? You're watching the games. It doesn't look or feel right. Why are we starting? Why are we starting so slow? Why aren't we pressing when we should be pressing? Why aren't we playing those automations, or they're so easily getting cut out? How is it that we've turned over so many staff and managers, and we still seem to be doing the same stuff again and again? I think this is some part of the frustration. I don't think it's all just down to us being entitled that we're third and we're top of the league, so what we've got really to moan about. And I don't even think it's really to do with Arsenal and them doing so well either. I think we're just seeing what's in front of our eyes, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't. I mean, to me, I don't like what I'm seeing at the moment. I'm thinking, I'm shouting out "wake up." I'm shouting out things like press, and why is it we can see it and the players don't know how to do it? It takes them a whole half most of the time to get their engine in gear and start doing something about it.
I think we used to see this under Poch, though, didn't we? Where quite often he would say, I know within like 90 seconds how this game's going to turn out. And the same is happening with Conte, and I don't know the reasons why, but obviously last night in the second half we played a lot better than we did in the first half.
And did we abandon the system, do you think?
Well, I thought we did in a way. Maybe we just kind of took the shackles off a bit and allowed us to be a bit more free. I mean, Romero seemed to be all over the pitch. He just seemed to have this roaming role, which seemed bizarre. And I don't know whether that's an instruction or whether Conte just said to people, just go out there and win the game, because I don't know how to do it. But
that famous quote from somebody else that used to be associated with the club, isn't it? Just fucking run around a bit.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and in a way, that's what we needed to do. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether we gave up that system, but we certainly played football. And at the end of the day, as you said, as a pure eye test, you want to be able to look at it and say, yeah, my team is actually really trying here, and that's all we want. That's all we want. Against Newcastle at the weekend, obviously, once again, really turgid and struggling until the second half. Do we start doing things, and then it's all too late because Newcastle was smart enough just to keep us out? But it's we've got to play for the whole 90 minutes, and we just aren't doing it.
Yeah, and one positive, I thought Brian Hill played well. I thought when he came on, he was he brought a different type of energy. The way he dribbles, the way he attacked, I thought gave us a bit of hope. I think we got to get rid of bloody Mora and use Brian Hill if we're going to play that system.
It's a good point, actually, because Mora, he's got the ability to pick a ball up and run with it, but he's got no ability to release it properly. Whereas with Hill, you can see that he creates chaos, doesn't he? And he puts defenders on the back foot. And I want to see more of him. I don't see why not. I mean, what else can we do to try and improve things at the moment? When you got Sonny, who is incapable of doing that, he can't pick the ball up and run with it and put players on the back foot. So yeah.
I mean, it was a completely different second half. I mean, at the end of the first half, I thought, I can't see us turning this around. I don't feel like we've got it in us. But they did. They played much better. Still felt that at times we were a bit toothless. But then I think obviously the introduction of Hill changed things. Getting the Bentancur's goal changed the sort of feel. And then we just kind of threw the kitchen sink at it. That then brings us on to VAR. So I think we need to have a good go at this, shall we? What were your thoughts, Rich, on that decision last night and the ridiculous wait for that decision?
Well, I think I said last night, when it went in, I thought it was offside. I thought it was so close that I thought we're never going to get this.
Yeah, we did.
And I was disappointed, but not in the least bit surprised when it was turned over. I mean, the explanations as to why, I mean, there was an awful lot of talk last night after the game, both on TV and then subsequently on places like Twitter, where you've got all of these sort of armchair experts saying things like, "Oh, well, it's the fact that that it wasn't a deliberate touch from the defender, therefore it can't trigger a new phase of play, which means he had to offside," and and yada yada. And I kind of understand a lot of the arguments for it, and so I'm not displeased that the goal was disallowed in itself, because I think it was, I mean, obviously, ultimately they did decide that it was offside, and there you are, and that's all there is to it. But the thing that annoys me the most is that we should have been fucking 3-1 up by that point, because Eric should have scored 2 headers in the 10 minutes before it.
That's the most galling thing. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I mean, that second one, I mean, he sort of looked at it and it came off him, and if he'd have been a third, 3/8 of an inch further forward, it would have nestled inside that far post, and it would have been a beautiful goal. And he knows how he missed it,
I'll come to you in a second, Andy, but I just thought, I mean, I have a slightly different take on it. I thought that should have stood. I thought the fact that I think the rule might have changed now, heading it backwards doesn't really make any difference now, but it came off the